Daniel Carney here from Goodlife Financial Advice. There's been a lot of talk in the media lately about the government's not being able to afford to pay for retirees at retirement. Something's going to have to be done about the pension. And that's because you've got this boatload of retirees retiring and this many people and taxpayers to pay for them. So something's got to give. And unfortunately, statistically, most people retiring will retire with nothing. In fact, it's more than 85% of Kiwis will retire with no nest egg to help fund their retirement. And why have they got themselves into that position? Well, it's because they're in what we call a poverty cycle. I'm just going to talk quickly about what the poverty cycle is and how you can get yourself out of it, because that's what we really want to help people to do. Now, again, the scary statistics is that about 85% of Kiwis will retire with nothing, and about 15% will retire with some form of nest egg. Actually, only about 1% will retire with enough money to pay them around about $60,000 a year for the rest of their retirement. So pretty scary stats. So the interesting thing is that they're the same kinds of people. They go to the same kinds of schools, they have the same sorts of jobs, they earn the same kinds of money, but the 15% do something different. It's not rocket science, and it's what we're trying to help our clients to get their heads around. So the 85%, what are they doing? Well, they get paid, and then straight away a big chunk goes out to the tax man. Let's say about 20 to 30% is gone, straight to the tax man. Then they have to pay their bills, their debts, and their expenses. Excuse my messy writing. Now, for most New Zealanders, debts is a mortgage, right? Because we're a mortgage-driven country, and it's a mortgage. They have to pay their mortgage. Interestingly enough, this is from the word. It's translated from debt until death. That's where the word mortgage comes from. Debt until death. And for most New Zealanders, that's how it feels. So they've done all of those things, they've paid for all of those things, then the next thing they have to do is have some kind of lifestyle. You know, go skiing, go to the movies, go to the pub, whatever, but they spend the rest of their money on that. Unfortunately, they're not thinking about any sort of savings. There's no savings coming up the side here. And I know that for a fact because I interview people like this all the time. New Zealanders don't save money. So that's not happening. All the money's now gone and it's payday again. And that's why we call that the poverty cycle, because they go round and around and around and around until they hit retirement, and then there's nothing there. Yes, they may have paid off their mortgage, but having a mortgage-free home is not going to fund your retirement. And the unfortunate case for most New Zealanders is that they'll have to sell their home and downsize. And we don't want that. Okay? So what are the 15% doing different? Well, obviously we help people expand on this in a lot more detail, but just very, very briefly, it's really these two areas out the side here. They're a lot more savvy or wily when it comes to paying their taxes. So they pay less tax than your average Kiwi, or they get a nice big fat tax return at the end of the year, which is like paying less tax, right? But a big fat tax return is basically like a savings plan, isn't it? If you're given a chunk of money, that can go towards something to help fund your later life. So they're also thinking about savings. We're not saying we're trying to grab all of your tax savings and make that a savings plan, but it is part of the strategy. But we want people to be thinking about the long term, thinking about their long-term savings, and putting aside something for the distant future that they can't touch and won't get their hands on until their later life. So it's definitely a goal-based approach to funding your future self. So that's what we want to help people with, to get out of the poverty cycle and into the small minority, which is fairly easy to do, and have some kind of nest egg to help fund your later life so that you're not on the bones of your backside when you get to retirement. We don't want that for you.